Today, we're looking at top trends in the automotive world. We'll see how cars are getting more electronic features and less mechanical ones. I'll also share my opinion on what I think is helpful, useless, or if not quite there yet, hop in and let's get going. What comes to mind when you hear the word autopilot? You're like most people, you're probably thinking of an airplane. But in the car world, these systems have limited capabilities and operate more a set of driver assistance functions rather than a true autonomous autopilot system. Interestingly, even if the car makers offered an autopilot system that's reliably semi-autonomous like those found in airplanes, some experts believe its capabilities would make operating a car far more riskier for multiple reasons. One reason is that humans tend to zone out when automated systems are running for a period of time. Indeed, studies have shown that people have a hard time paying attention when they're asked to monitor a repetitive process for a long time. Another reason is the transition from autopilot mode back to manual human control. In the case of aviation autopiloting, the advantage is that airplanes fly several miles up in the sky. This gives pilots usually a minute or even more to switch from autopilot mode back to manual human control. But when it comes to cars, the fact is that when a car's autopilot system is running, it temporarily takes the human driver out of the loop of control. The huge problem here is the transition time back to the manual human control. It just isn't instant or fast enough. In an imminent collision, a driver may have just 1 second or less to react. So you can see that if an error occurs in the system, the transition from autopilot to manual control may not be fast enough for human reaction to override it and take control of the car. Overall, this is a very new technology and one that isn't quite there yet. Personally, I think it's wise to hold off on getting this feature for now. If you're buying a car that offers one, you'll be paying a lot of cash for something that hasn't been refined, isn't fail-safe, and even worse, may inadvertently contribute to an accident due to lag in transition time. What about automatic emergency braking? As the name suggests, this is what is known as an active safety system, in which the vehicle's brakes are applied when a potential collision is detected. The brakes get activated without the driver actually pressing down on the brake pedal. AEB systems are able to detect vehicles, and many can also detect cyclists and pedestrians. Imagine you found yourself in a situation where you hesitated or didn't press the brake pedal hard enough. In this situation, the AEB system would engage and intervene. So don't be surprised if your car suddenly stops on its own. Oftentimes, the AEB system works in conjunction with the forward collision warning system. In most vehicles, FCW is activated moments before AEB. The purpose of FCW is to alert the driver with a visual or audio signal, so a driver can react and brake. A situation that triggers an FCW warning or alert is blind spot. But not all vehicles have both systems installed. Some cars offer FCW, but not necessarily AEB. How does the AEB system know when to hit the brakes? Well, modern cars are getting smarter with the help of sensors and cameras. Some automakers are making use of radar sensors that can be installed in the grille, bumper, or air vents of the car. Other cars work with cameras that are located inside the windshield and behind the rearview mirror. And of course, some car makers take advantage of both the radar sensor and camera. The sensor and radar capture information and feed it into a software that is continuously calculating the potential for collision. The FCW and AEB gets activated only when a precise set of parameters are met. Incidentally, this applies not only to possible collisions when you're driving forward, but also when you're going in reverse. Have you ever wished for a feature to help you parallel park or back out of a driveway? And I don't mean rubber bumpers. Well, right now, reverse automatic braking is making this possible. It locks the brakes while in reverse, as well as when you're in drive. For example, the safety function can detect obstacles, be it a fence, wall, or someone else's car, to help you avoid collision. The purpose of AEB is pretty clear: to help the driver reduce the severity of an accident or avoid it altogether. But there are some disadvantages with AEB. For example, there's a possibility for error, and that's a problem. When we over-rely on automated systems and assume they work perfectly, this can dull our senses when we're on the road. In the event of a system error, this can lead to an accident that could have been avoided if we had been alert at that moment. Also, a system error can cause false braking. Imagine driving along and suddenly hearing your brakes screeching, even though there's enough distance of the car ahead of you. This could cause unnecessary panic and increase the likelihood of a rear-end collision by the car behind you. Now, of course, these scenarios are outliers. It may or may not happen to you. It's worth weighing in general. Cruise control is nothing new. Many people already know the cruise control feature allows your car to maintain a certain speed so you don't have to keep your foot on the gas constantly. And you can disable it anytime by pressing the brake pedal or pushing the same cruise control button up. A newer, smarter version of that is adaptive cruise control. It's cruise control combined with the use of radar. When it detects a car in front of you, it automatically slows down even before you react. Car makers offer different forms of the system. Some cars can decelerate to a particular speed and tell you to take over. Others slow down to a full stop before it accelerates again. All in all, this is great technology to help you save fuel and prevent collisions. But remember, this is not a fully autonomous system. You must still be alert on the road even when you're using the adaptive cruise control system. Next on the list is the automatic high beam. It operates in a similar way as a human currently should. Typically, when you have the high beams on and you notice an approaching car, you'd immediately switch the high beams to low beams. But let's be honest, have you ever had the high beams on when you're on an empty road for a long time and then you simply forget they're on? That's when the automatic high beam feature comes in handy. When it detects the headlights of an oncoming vehicle, it automatically switches to low beam. After the oncoming car passes by, the system automatically switches back to high beam. What about the other scenario? When your high beams are on and you're getting close to the car in front of you, the automated system automatically engages the low beam because it can also detect the tail lights of cars in front of you. Talk about smart convenience. Personally, I think this is a useful feature. One caveat, though, is that the automatic high beam system won't turn on if your car is moving at a speed that's less than 25 miles an hour. That's because at that speed it assumes you're driving in the city, in which case you normally wouldn't turn on your high beams. Another technology is the 360-degree surround camera system. Rear view cameras are default in most cars nowadays, but I'm talking about cameras with a wider view. The 360-degree surround view system allows the drivers to get a complete visual image of what's happening around your cars in real time. So how does this 360-degree camera system work? Well, for starters, it's not just one camera. The technology processes the image from several video cameras located around the car, then combines them into a single image, normally a bird's eye view. You can now see the system referred as bird's eye view camera or as surround view camera because the perspective you see is like taken right above the vehicle. But these are all different names for the same technology. The cameras that feed the system are placed in strategic spots around the car, like on each bumper, at their corners, inside the emblem of the grille, the trunk, and under each side mirror. A composite image of the data is then displayed on your infotainment screen. Cameras can also be configured to give you an image that's not just a top-down view, but also display different angles to your vehicle's exterior. So whether you're entering a parking space or shifting into reverse, the 360-degree camera system is activated, seamlessly showing you nearby obstacles so you can avoid collision. Most people expect the best image quality from the system, but unfortunately that's not always the case. There are some top-notch vehicles that offer a 360-degree camera system that leaves a lot to be desired. For example, according to Motor Trend, Toyota's 360-degree cameras don't always have high-quality resolution. Even the system by the luxury car maker Lexus sometimes displays a low-resolution distorted picture. Same can be said for the Nissan Rogue Sport. Its infotainment screen displays high definition, but it's not necessarily the case when it's an image from the cameras, which can be quite grainy. On the other hand, the Mazda CX-5, the image of the cameras is very clear. The problem is that their infotainment screen is too small. So, as you can see, there's shortcomings. A feature that I personally believe isn't worth paying for is the lane keeping assistance system. The system basically works to keep you centered in your lane. There are two types of lane keeping assistance, passive and active. The passive system simply warns you if the driver is shifting from the selected lane. The active system gives a warning too, but it also corrects the trajectory of movement. In other words, it returns the car to its lane by applying a small amount of steering torque. The concept sounds good, but you should know that a study by the American Automobile Association, AAA, discovered that driver assistance systems in new cars are generally unreliable. On average, the systems experience problems every 8 miles. AAA concluded that drivers should always be careful and attentive when using these types of systems because there is virtually no evidence of safety benefits in the real world. Another feature is the built-in navigation system. For starters, most built-in navigation systems that come with the car are usually expensive. Instead, it's far better to just use your smartphone's map app and display it on your car's screen. Basically, buying a built-in navigation is the same as if you wanted to fit your rims with low-profile tires. It might look cool, but in terms of practicality, large rims and low-profile tires that give you a ride which is less comfortable and definitely more prone to damage from potholes. And they cost so much more than conventional tires. So there you have it, the top trending systems and features in the car world. Of course, if you're a techie or early adopter who always wants the latest, well, that's your choice, and right, it's your pocket too. And certainly, some of these systems are very smart and definitely worth the pen. But personally, I don't think all of these systems are quite there yet. and therefore not worth getting for now. But now you tell me, what new car features appeal to you the most? Do you have any funny or horror stories or any tech features that went wrong? Please comment below and share. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Thanks for your support.